I spent an exorbitant amount of money on mentors this year alone. Some of these lessons are absolutely priceless, and I'm going to share them with you in this video. Some of the lessons absolutely didn't pay off, and it was basically just a waste of time, and I'll be sharing that with you as well. And to make it interesting for you, we're going to tally up the exact amount of money that I spent this year over time, so you can see exactly what lesson cost me how much money. We're right now at the airport. We're going to travel to Cannes to an exclusive mastermind with some of the biggest online entrepreneurs in the world. You're going to meet them with me. You're going to learn the lessons alongside with me. Let's get started. We arrived in Cannes at the mastermind, and the first two investments I actually did in myself was 2 times $300 for 2 separate live seminars on dating coaching. So I was in the beginning of my 20s. All I was really focused on was how can I get out of my shell? How can I get a better dating life? Because that's all a young 20-year-old man is interested in. And of course, for these 2 seminars, that's what I got out. But there was one thing that I got out there which actually changed my life forever, and it has nothing to do with dating. So the first $300 I spent on a dating seminar by a guy named Alex Social. And he was kind of just traveling the world and living his best life, going out, talking to girls and making money while on the road. And that really opened my mind up to the possibility that it's even possible there's people out there who are living the life, and you don't need to be particularly smart or special to do that. You just have to know how. And the second $300 I spent was actually on a dating seminar by Julian. And on that seminar, I had the quick opportunity to ask Julian a personal question. And I said, hey, I love that you guys are traveling the world. I've been at this other guy's, Alex's seminar, and it really opened my mind. I want to travel the world. How can I do that? And he said, well, I'll give you the following advice. Try to get involved with the community, try to become an unpaid assistant, and then maybe you can travel with one of us and learn from us while at the same time seeing the world and building up a skill set. But I took that so hardcore to my heart that I actually implemented that. I volunteered to become an unpaid assistant, and then a couple months later, they literally sent me first to Miami, to the US, and then they sent me to Julian specifically on the Canada leg of his world tour. So I arrive at the Airbnb, I knock at the door opens, and it's Julian, and he said, it's you? You're the guy who asked me how to become an unpaid assistant? I'm like, yeah, I mean, you told me I should do this. And he's like, do you even know that nobody's ever actually executed that advice? Like, nobody was actually crazy enough to go and do it. You're the first guy. And I'm like, it's kind of obvious. I mean, I asked you, now I'm here, I'm doing it. And those 2 times $300 were such a catalyst to change in my life that I really said, it's probably one of the best investments I've ever done. And you know, looking back now, I would have spent $300,000 and not just $300 in that, because it was such a game changer. Anyways, we're gonna head inside. We're gonna learn a lot more, and we're gonna see what some of the other folks here have spent on their mentorship so far and what kind of money they're making from it. 2 to 5 million a year. We're here with, how are you known on the internet?
I'm David. I do dating coaching for men. I help them find a relationship.
How much have you spent in total on mentorships?
Minimum 70, 80K probably over the last 3 years.
What was the single most expensive mentorship you've bought?
48.
What was the biggest takeaway from those 48K?
Sales.
How much have you made from those 48K, do you think, directly from that?
Directly, probably only 2 times, I would say, I'd attribute it. But like in the long term, probably you can attribute 80, 90% to it.
Alex Duadari. I have a hedge fund trading background, and I teach people trading, actually.
How much money in total do you think you've spent on mentorship so far over your career?
6 figures.
What's the most expensive mentorship you've ever bought?
It's not a single ticket one, I would say. Like, it's a combination. Not quite 6 figures, not too far off. The most important part about mentorships is that if you expect anyone's gonna teach you a reinvention of a wheel, that's wrong. What you get is how people figured out faster access to certain types of informations and executions.
Philip Johansson, in total $350,000.
What was the most expensive single mentorship you bought?
80K. I learned how to build a sales team, and then I got 30 minutes with the guy that created the company. 30 minutes.
How much did you make from those 80K?
Last year alone, we made $27 million cash collected.
I spent 0 on mentors. But I have
Really?
some mentors, yeah.
And you don't pay them or what?
No, I mean, when I was younger, I attended some courses, some internships. So not 0, but very little.
When you
All
did,
during my study days, yeah.
when you did internships, was it just like you worked for them for free and in exchange you learned from them?
Yeah, I had to do like very stupid things sometimes, like going to the post office and sending out packages. But also it showed me that I'm quite, that's more to life than doing this. So it really like awakened my desire to do something for myself. Yeah. Be open and often say yes, not only no all the times, and really be open to new connections and networks, because they can really lift your business up.
What are like the biggest mistakes people make whenever they get consulted, and what is like the best thing that they do when they get consulted?
Many people have some preconceptions because they have friends doing this and that, and there's some hypes every year, go there and there, and often it's not the right solution for the individual situation, and people are sometimes hard to convince that it's not a good idea to do this and that. So it's very important to be more independent minded.
My next big mentorship I did not pay with money because I didn't have any. I actually paid with my own personal time. I worked for 6 months unpaid as a personal assistant to Owen Cook, who is, and especially back then, was one of the biggest personal development and dating advice coaches out there. I basically worked nonstop. The cool thing is though, a lot of people say, oh, I would never do that. But look, I was in my early 20s. I had no family, I had no responsibilities. I had quit my job, dropped out of university to do this and go all in on this whole quest of becoming a coach and making money on my own terms and creating a brand online and all that jazz. So I had nothing to lose really, and it was a very smart thing to do for me at that time. I know not a lot of people don't have that luxury, which is totally fine. That's why, a lot of times when you're older, you have the money, but not the time. So it's totally fine to spend a lot of money on mentoring, which I do now. But back then, basically just spent my time. There is no not possible, because I'm a guy that comes from a very conservative family. There's a lot of things like, oh, well, you can't build a business because that's risky, and you can't do that because of the rules and yada, yada. But then I get thrown in this company, this international company, they're moving very fast, and they're getting shit done. This whole idea of like, just make it work at all cost really, really blew my mind. And that is something that we still have in our company right now. There's no, it doesn't work. There's only, how can we make it work? The next lesson is way more brutal. I had started building my own brand on the side with like 1,000 or 2,000 subscribers on YouTube. I remember once proudly showing that new YouTube channel to Owen, my mentor, and I said, look at this, all the comments are positive, Owen, not a single hater in there. And he looks at me disturbed. He says, not a single hater? That's really bad. If you don't provoke people, if you don't trigger people, if everybody just is here to love you, that means you're not reaching a broader mass enough. You're not titillating their brain enough to really stay in their brain. And that kind of blew my mind because, I was a young fella. All I wanted to do is be respected and be loved and be liked. And then I realized you can only really build a large business, a successful following, if you're not afraid of turning heads. In fact, Owen is a very, very obsessed person. Here, there was a guy in his back then 30s that was running a multi-7-figure company, that was running around filming nonstop, and he was clearly obsessed with public speaking, with content creation, with organic growth, with making money, with serving people. He was obsessed with everything. So my entire life up to that point, I was under the impression of being obsessed equals bad. It's okay to be obsessed. In fact, it is probably something you want to look for. You want to search for that obsession where you can put a lot of work in and it doesn't bother you. So after my 6 months unpaid internship, I did another 6 months unpaid internship. I worked for a whole year entirely for free just to learn things. Then I went on my first world tour, then on my second world tour. I went on 4 world tours altogether. I then also started creating my first digital product at the age of 26. I think that was 2 or 3 years in. That made me my first million. So for the first time ever, I was making 7 figures. I had a 50-50 deal now. So first I invested 12 months of my time. Then I invested 50% of my profit for those mentors. It helped me a lot. It helped me tremendously. And it made me my first million at a tender age of 26, which was very, very awesome. Now, that's pretty great already, but I wasn't even done, not even close. In fact, what I did next completely changed my life, and it wasn't even that big of an investment. The next mentoring, I actually got closed completely against my will. I had zero intention of buying it, but the way they closed me was super genius, and the amount of money it made me was pretty insane. It was two German guys, two brothers, and their offer is basically, we're helping people create a high-ticket online coaching program. So these two brothers were actually speakers at a very large German business conference. I was also a speaker at that conference. They said, hey, let's sell our program to this Max Tornow guy when we're at the event. So the event comes, and I was just swarmed by fans of my brand back then. What they did was, they were like, oh, here's Max Tornow's best friend, Kevin. Let's just hang out with this Kevin guy the entire time, tell him how awesome we are, tell him what we do, tell him how much money we're making and how much our clients are making. So Kevin, the entire week after the event, kept talking about these guys. Oh, I met this Marcus guy, they're making so much money, they bought a new Mercedes-Benz. The first time I heard it, I was like, yeah, cool. Second time I heard it, I'm like, yeah, cool. Third time I heard it, I was like, wait, tell me more about these people. I find this guy on Facebook, and I was like, hey Marcus, I heard you guys help people make more money. And Marcus was like, yeah, let's hop on a call. Back then I didn't even expect this to be a sales call. And he explains to me basically everything he would do in my situation to turn my low-ticket digital product into a high-ticket, high-priced mentoring program where people have more touch points with me, and that allows us to have a higher price. And at the end he says, all right, Max, you can do this yourself now, or you pay us and we'll do it together. And I can't remember if it was 5,000 or 8,000 euros, something in between, something along those lines. And I look at him, and then I look at the notes, and I look at him, and I look at the notes, and I'm like, these notes are gonna take me forever to execute that myself. So I'm like, yeah, okay, let's do it. And he's like, good, welcome on board. And that mentoring program actually ended up making me, I think, 100K in the first month, 180K in the second month, and then in the third month, we cracked 300,000 US dollars in a single month. Low ticket is great, high ticket is even better for two reasons. Number one, it makes you more money because instead of buying something for 400 bucks or 300 bucks, the person buys something for 3,000 or 4,000 bucks. So obviously your profit margins are much higher, but also because people pay more, they get more from it. So you also win because your clients are happier, they get more results. You increase the customer lifetime value and you increase customer satisfaction, which makes your marketing easier because you get more testimonials and or more referrals and so on and so forth. In fact, we ended up making, I think, 3 million or 4 million, something like that in our first 12 months. A lot of folks, when they're starting to build a business, they're like, oh, I don't want to sell. We're not sleazy salespeople or anything like that. But a lot of times when you're on a sales call with someone, they will hesitate, they will have objections, and then it is your responsibility to handle these objections and sell them. As long as you know, once they sign up with you, they're gonna get an awesome results. We always say we sell really hard, but we deliver even harder. And what happened then will be quite surprising. So they closed me on a 50-50 deal that lasted for 2 years. And guess how much I paid these guys? Around 4 million euros over those 2 years that we worked together. Was it worth it? Hell yeah. I'll tell you why. Number one, they helped me overcome a mindset issue that I didn't even know I had in the first place. I was a guy who said, I can work hard, I can make $1 million with a product launch, I can make a few more million, more or less by myself with some high ticket mentoring. They said, you're Max fucking Tornow. Of course you can do that. And I don't know why it worked, but they found a way to communicate things to me that made me understand that everything is possible. If you work hard, if you're smart, if you get the right people, and if you're really damn consistent and fail forward, you can absolutely do that. Was that worth 4 million? Abso-fucking-lutely. But I got even more than that. In fact, the two biggest lessons that I got from these 2 years are, number one, internal trainings and automating everything when it comes to your recruiting and internal processes, and number two, highest quality delivery. When someone buys a product or program of mine, the videos that they will see are highly structured, always up to date, and highest quality possible. So that was one of the standards that got set, that everything people will see from you is not only shiny on the outside with the marketing and the YouTube and whatnot, but it's also very, very shiny, arguably even shinier on the inside. But everything comes to an end. So eventually we ended our relationship there as well. And then I was back on my own again. But that opened up my world to learning from some of the best mentors in the world that you've never heard before. And some of them you've actually heard before, I guarantee you, because they're quite famous. And the amount of money I spent there was not always good. In fact, I bought some stuff that did not get me any results, and I'll talk about these as well. So here's the funny thing. As I was venturing out alone, the number one thing we needed to figure out was how to crack cold traffic. Now, we've done organic traffic before, which means we sold to people that knew me, that followed me for years, and we were like, organic is a nice to have, but if you really want to scale a company, you need to crack selling to people that don't know you yet, that just seen an ad of you. The problem is, I've had an entire sales team full of staff that could not yet sell to people that didn't know me. They could sell to people that were fans, but they were not prepared for the amount of doubt that people had, for the amount of distrust that people had towards someone that they saw a paid ad from. And that is where my sales mentoring came in. First, I wrote this down, I spent $26,000 US on sales mentoring. Then I spent another $52,000 on the same sales mentoring, just a higher tier. Then I spent $15,000, and then I spent another $48,000 for sales mentoring. What did I learn from that? Oh, so much. The entire mind journey that a potential client goes through, from being forced to see your ad, to signing up to something, to having the first touch point with one of your phone setter, has to be properly curated with very, very low pressure. Apart from that, quality control. Sure, you don't want to be involved in everything in your business, you want to be the big picture thinker and so on and so forth, but at the same time, just trusting someone blindly without cutting the cards can hurt your business as well. Now, I learned one other thing that completely changed the way I approach hiring. That's what we're going to talk about next, but we're going to check out the next speaker, which is Ty Lopez, by the way. Another very expensive mentorship that I bought, but more about that later.
You guys should have come join the table.
Yeah, dude, we're so tired on different time zones and shit.
You came from Finland.
I know,
1 hour. I came from LA is 9.
but like legit, it's for me like 3 hours after my bedtime. I think the biggest lesson I got from all these sales trainings is the hiring process, actually, on how to find, retain, and train A players for your sales staff. And this is a huge problem for people in the, I would say, 500,000 a year to 5 million a year business size, because they only hire sales staff when they need them. The problem with that is, number one, you lose a lot of money, because between you identifying the constraint and then fixing the constraint is usually several weeks. These are weeks where you could have made much more money, so you're losing a lot of money in terms of opportunity cost. And number two, you're much less inclined to find an A player when you are desperate to get the position covered. ABH, always be hiring. So what we're doing is we're perpetually hiring and interviewing people, even if the position isn't open. It creates you a pool of A players that you can fall back on the moment the position is open. And it literally could just take you half a week, like 2-3 days sometimes, from you identifying the constraint and then having the position covered. The last thing that I want to mention that we learned from all these sales coachings that we kept buying over and over again is actually outbound procedures. Outbound is basically, you're not just taking calls for people that book on your calendar, but you have an opt-in somewhere, be it, you give away something for free and people have to drop their phone number in order to get it, or you're running ads to a free training video or a VSL and people have to opt in with their phone number before watching it. And then you have all these phone numbers. Now, a lot of people never do anything with these phone numbers. What we've actually done is it took us like 2 years to really figure out how to really convert people that just drop their phone number after seeing a 3-minute ad really well. But that was also what the sales coaching helped us very, very much so. Because you have to be very quick on your feet, you have to have extremely good reps, you have to have reps that are used to cold traffic and that are used to doing cold calling. The cool thing about, cracking the outbound procedure is it's very hard to copy. In a world nowadays with where all marketers are cloning each other and stealing funnels, the moment a funnel works, you got like 10, 20, 30, 500 marketers copying your exact funnel. Outbound procedures cannot be copied, right? If you want to copy my funnels, you could just go check out my videos and be like, well, let's just make the same ad in essence. You cannot copy what our sales staff is doing. You cannot copy the procedures that a very good cold caller that we've hired and trained
is going through. Overall, I was in the mindset of, I don't want to figure out sales. I always saw myself more as a marketer or as a coach, definitely not as a salesperson, but my many years in teaching dating advice and personal development advice actually massively helped me with understanding sales. I noticed that once I started doing quality control of my sales staff and really looked at what is being done here, I'm like, this is just like the stuff we used to teach in dating, and I love sales now. I love it very much, and we make very good money from that knowledge and from that commitment that I made to my company and to the people in my company, that I say, you know, I may not be a salesperson, I may not be interested in it, but I'll get really good at it. Now, that being a very fantastic investment, there was actually also investments that were really bad that basically didn't do anything for me and was a waste of time, so let's get into those. There's a $20,000 mentoring that I bought from a very smart Instagram short form script writer person. He's relatively well known in the industry and a great guy to work with, but for some reason it just didn't do anything for us. I didn't retain much knowledge. I almost feel like it was not the right thing for the context that our company was at that time. We were converting super well from Instagram. We're converting even better now. Most of our money that we made organically came from Instagram, and we said, well, obviously makes sense. Let's go get into the mentoring of the guy that is the expert in organic copywriting for Instagram short form videos. But a lot of times with mentorings, you have to take things with a grain of salt, because the mentors that you buy from, they don't have as much context as you. No matter how much you explain to them, you will always be the person who has the most leverage on the knowledge that you will get from the mentoring, and you will always have the most context. So I feel like what we learned there wasn't applicable for us at that point in time. So it was $20K that I just kind of spent, and it didn't really do anything. Now, do I regret that? No, not really, because I never see investments singularly in terms of like, this made me money and this didn't. I always see it as a big pot, kind of like Warren Buffett says. You know, he says the top 20% of his investments pay for the 80% that don't make any money. So overall, he's still making plus. And that's kind of how I see it with mentorings. Plus, on top of that, who knows that maybe all the lessons that I can't apply right now from that $20,000 mentoring will make sense at a later stage, and then I can kind of fall back on that. Now, what I did get a lot of value from is actually completely different mentoring that I invested in for my health, for my physical health and mobility. I've been spending around $15,000 to $20,000 this year alone on health, fitness, nutrition, and mobility mentoring. For me specifically, I think the mobility mentoring was the biggest game changer, because I'm someone that pushes his body and his mind very hard all the time, and then mobility was never something I gave a damn about. Mobility and stretching, I was always just like, well, what can get me more gains and more strength? So that mobility mentoring really opened my eyes as to, you know, how close my hips are, how close my chest is, and it got rid of a lot of pain for me. And $15,000 to $20,000 spent in a year on that might sound much to you, but it's not. First of all, quality of life. Second of all, longevity of your health. These are two so ultra important things. And then last but not least is also, again, I'm at an age right now where you kind of want to maintain your health and not get worse as you keep pushing your body. So in my 20s, I never stretched. I never went to massage whatsoever. Now I do, and if I don't, things start hurting. So you kind of have to realize that your body can't be pushed forever, and at some point it's a lot about recovery. Now, $20,000 spent on health sounds a lot. There's actually also tiny investments that I made that absolutely were worth it. In fact, I went to a mastermind from Tai Lopez for $500 spontaneously in Helsinki in summer. And I mean, it's what, you know, for $500, you can imagine what you're gonna get. Is Tai comes in, does a little bit of improvisation. That's basically it. Still valuable stuff, but what that really did to me is I got to know quite a bunch of people there, And this networking aspect is something that I had always neglected massively. You meet so many different people and you make new connections, new business partners, mentorships, and so on and so forth. It can be very, very valuable. But anyways, back to that $500 mastermind that I spent in summer in Helsinki. I actually met Baxter there. Baxter himself being a dating coach for many years, being known as a business partner of Mystery, the kind of the father of dating coaching, so to speak. And I hung out with him a little bit, chatted with him a little bit, and then eventually he came on the Max Tornow podcast, and he also brought Mystery, and that's to this day one of the most clicked on Max Tornow podcast episodes, and obviously helped the channel grow tremendously. You're always just like one person away from the next business goal, from the next personal goal, and so on and so forth. I'm a natural introvert, believe it or not, so I kind of have to quote unquote force myself to be social and get momentum. But once I do, I have a really, really good time. I drink a lot of coffee on these masterminds too. Now, that being said, the highest amount that I spent this year is a very interesting mentoring. I spent over $100,000 on a one-on-one personal brand mentoring. Was it worth it? Let's find out. So spending $100K on personal brand mentoring can be a really bad idea, but it can also be a really good idea. I think you have to be ready in your mind to know how to learn, actually, because if you buy a course, it's usually given for you. There's like a path that's laid out. But if you just buy mentoring from a singular person and you have like an hour to talk to them every month or so, you really have to be well prepared and kind of know what questions can I ask that give me the highest leverage. So what we're doing with Ty is I'm never just coming into a call with like, what do we do? It's more like, here's what we want to do. What do you think of that? How to do that? What do you think are the pitfalls? And so far it's been ultra valuable for me in this regard. Just a couple small lessons that I want to share with you here, so you don't have to spend 100K. Or I asked Ty, what does he think about my tattoos? You know, given the fact that I'm in a relatively conservative niche, which is business consulting, does it hurt me? And he instantly said, no, they're great. It's better than not having tattoos. And I'm like, really? Are you sure? Like what? And he said, well, these tattoos make people stare. And when they stare, they spend more time listening to you. And when they do that, everything you do converts better. So there we go. Big investment. You can see that as an investment already. And then the other thing that was pretty mind-blowing for me are Ty gives every one of his businesses 14 divisions. And I'm not going to tell you all the divisions. I'm not going to go into detail here. But basically says your company's revenue should come from 3 divisions. Division number 1 is your sales team. Division number 2 is paid advertising. And division number 3 is organic. So far for us the last 3-4 years, 99% of our money came from only sales team, meaning people book a call because they want to work with us, they get on a call with the sales team. And after that we started selling other offers that don't require the sales team to sell. And it's really cool because sales team is human beings. If the sales team is great, performing great, has great momentum, everybody's crushing, we make a ton of money. But for example, what we've had 2 months ago, some people in our sales team were sick, some people left, some people came in new and had to be ramped up, and some people were on vacation. So if all these factors come together, you can have a very, very bad month right off the bat. But if only 30% on average, roughly, of your monthly revenue comes from the sales team, the rest is happening from organic, from selling lower ticket offers, and from paid advertising that go straight to lower or higher ticket offers. Now you're not at risk as much, not dependent on much on humans, which is very, very great. However, I learned something even more interesting, which is the idea of formats when it comes to social media creation. And this is something I've been doing already for 10 years, but I was never really able to define it as well and have a theory explanation underneath it. So what I've basically learned is that, let's take the example of short form videos. If you go to my Instagram account, you will see me, for example, being interviewed by an attractive girl. Then you see me speaking to the camera. Then you see me showing a screenshot of something that just happened in the world, and I'm commenting on these news. These are all different formats. There's one-hit wonders out there, content creators that became famous with a single format. For example, a friend of mine, Anatoly, the fitness influencer that has that one format where he's looking like the janitor and he's lifting up the weights and people are freaking out because he's stronger than they expect. That's a single format. But usually if you look at content creators that are relevant and manage to stay relevant for years to come, they have at least 3 formats that are working, that are consistently getting them virality, and that they can repeat. And if you really, really want to win, you have at least 10 formats with which you've gone viral so far. I think I've gone viral so far with 3 or 4 different formats. And right now, if you actually go to my Max Tornow Business Instagram account, you will see that we're testing out a lot of different formats. Some of them are tanking, they're not working, but some of them are also working. And ideally, you then have a portfolio of different formats that are always working. Obviously, the same works for podcasts, long-form YouTube videos, and so on and so forth. There's format A, which is just monologue podcast, which I've done. And there's format B, which is having interesting conversations with guests. And then there's format C, which is where you actually have debates, right, trying to disagree a little bit with the other person, which I've just started and people really love it. I've had Sandra Emilia on. She's a feminist content creator. And so me with my background in dating, of course there's like the classical dating background versus feminism and so on and so forth. And we've had some great conversations going back and forth. So formats is something that has absolutely helped me. That is absolutely going to make us much more money than the 100K that I spent on the personal brand mentoring. Also there though, just the association with one of the biggest names in the online marketing space has helped me tremendously. In fact, what I did is, Ty was then also on my podcast, and what I did is I obviously used that to get more guests on. So all the consecutive guests that I reached out to after having Ty on were basically, hey, I have a podcast. It's not the biggest podcast yet, but I've had Ty Lopez on as the last guest, and everybody keeps saying yes now. And we're actually going to embark on a little mini US podcast tour because I've had so many guests now that have said yes. I'm very excited for that as well.
Which ultimately brings me to the last investment, which is this mastermind. $5,000, meet a bunch of really awesome people. We got 3 new business partners, 2 new potential things that we want to do, learn a ton of things. In fact, I just posted the following on Facebook. I said, just spent $5,000 on a mastermind. First 30 minutes, got that money back in, simply because I learned a lot of new things that are gonna make us a ton of money back. So I guess the lesson here is always keep learning. You wanna be a perpetual learner, not a know-it-all, but a learn-it-all. And it can be totally fine to not always get your money's worth. Some of the investments just not gonna work out. But overall, if you keep investing in yourself, keep learning, keep adapting, and keep asking yourself what you can learn, what's the best thing that you can take out of each investment, that way you're always gonna be plus CV. So that being said, I'm gonna fly back to Helsinki for, 8 days? Then we're gonna be in Porto, then we're gonna go to Barcelona to the Cope Cart Spain launch party. After that, we will be in Marbella to do some more podcasts. And then we're gonna go to Miami, LA, Austin, Scottsdale, New York, and then back to Austria, and then a month in Cyprus, and it will be December. So by the time we're watching this, we'll already be traveling around. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.